Hello, this is Paul Mackey, and you're listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast. So I definitely put out that change of format a bit early before figuring out details like how to double up the art, how to cut the episodes in such a way that makes sense, etc. And then I went to Madison with the kids to visit my sister and her wife, so the optimizing of 2 episodes stacked together is somewhat less of an advantage based on how long it took to stack them. In any case, I've now worked out some of those things, including something new to help bring the 2 episodes together. So why don't we get going? I still need to figure out logistics on the YouTube edit as well, but I probably won't be doing that until after the first pair is recorded. So let's dive right in to the Rockford Files Season 2, Episode 3, Gearjammers, Part 1, originally aired September 26th of 1975. That day of note. It's not the current late-ending record holder, but on that day, the Mets and Phillies finished the 12th inning of the last game of a doubleheader at 3:15 a.m. At this point in the season, the Phillies were 6.5 games out of first place in the NL East, so the game had virtually no significance aside from its late end. The Phillies lost 2-1, and I can't imagine there were many of the 20,000-plus fans remaining at Veterans Stadium by the end. Jake Paltrow was born to Bruce Paltrow and Blythe Danner. Jake has followed in his late father's footsteps as a television and film director. Looking at the box office for the week, number 5 was Return to Macon County, starring Nick Nolte, Don Johnson, and Robin Mattson. Number 4 was William Castle's final horror film, Bug. Number 3 was a tie, re-releases of A Clockwork Orange and Deliverance. Number 2 was a re-release of The Exorcist, and number 1 was Jaws in its final week at the top. Over on the UK charts, from the official charts company Archives, number 5 was once again Jasper Carrot with Funky Moped / The Magic Roundabout. Number 4 was I'm on Fire by 5000 Volts, a disco tune. Number 3, Moonlighting by Leo Sayer. Number 2, Hold Me Close by David Essex. And the number 1 was once again Rod Stewart with Sailing. The Billboard Hot 100 had David Geddes with Run, Joey, Run at number 5. Number 4 was Fight the Power Part 1 by the Isley Brothers. Number 3 was Glenn Campbell with Rhinestone Cowboy. Number 2 was Fame by David Bowie, topped by John Denver with I'm Sorry. So the brief summary is that Rocky is selling raffle tickets to benefit a truckers organization to hire a Washington lobbyist. He goes to see a trucking head to sell a ticket, but turns away when he sees the man is busy with a man in a suit. It turns out the suit was a mobster, paying for the schedule of the trucking runs. The gangster's thugs hijack the cargoes. Meanwhile, Rocky was spotted near the deal, and the mob is trying to kill him in case he might have seen something, but Rocky is oblivious to what he saw. Jim spends a lot of the episode a few steps behind Rocky, and once they catch up with each other, the cases begin to stitch together. At the end of the episode, Jim and Rocky narrowly miss being blown up in Jim's car by a bomb planted by the mob.
This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
Okay, pal, it's Harry. I just checked my car. You kept the battery charged all right. You also put 3,500 miles on it.
Who is? This time I'm going to look at Rosemary DeCamp, who is in this episode a little bit as Mary Ramsey, a woman Rocky has apparently been seeing every Saturday for years, and known to pretty much everyone but Jim. Rosemary DeCamp was born in 1910, putting her in her mid-60s at the time of this episode. Rosemary began her performing career in radio and voiced characters in a couple of MGM animated shorts. In her film career, she was frequently cast in older roles, often under makeup to age her up, something similar to Whitman Mayo as mentioned on my recent episode of Whiz Kids. In 1942, she played James Cagney as George Cohan's mother in Yankee Doodle Dandy, despite being 11 years his junior. She also played mother to Ronald Reagan, 1 year younger than she, in Irving Berlin's This Is the Army. She worked opposite Jackie Gleason on television in The Life of Riley, then reprised that same role on the Life of Riley radio series afterwards. She worked the bulk of her career as a television actress, her last 2 film roles coming over 20 years apart, William Castle's 13 Ghosts in 1960 and horror comedy Saturday the 14th in 1981. In the mid-50s, she played Margaret MacDonald on the Bob Cummings Show for 158 episodes, and in the late 60s, she was in 20 episodes of That Girl as Marlo Thomas as Anne-Marie's mother. On television, from the 1960s on, she mainly appeared in frequent single episodes as a character actress. Her last 2 TV roles were as Amy Jeffries in 2 later season episodes of Saint Elsewhere, and a 1989 episode of Murder, She Wrote, in an episode that also features Max Gale Farley from Whiz Kids. She and her husband bought a house in Torrance in 1945, and for many years she ran a playwriting contest at Torrance High School. Rosemary DeCamp passed away in Torrance in 2001. This aged poorly. Well, this isn't quite the spirit of this category, but I did spot a large tank marked Hooker Chemicals near the shipyard where Rocky was shuffled out the back by his trucking buddy. This was still a little over a year before the Niagara Gazette first published reports about leaking chemicals that were dumped decades earlier by Hooker Chemicals at Love Canal. Artifactoids. Well, I suppose La Paz liquor is out as an artifactoid this time. If you're only listening to Rockford Files episodes, that might not make much sense, but I first encountered La Paz liquors a few weeks ago on an episode of Whiz Kids. TV budgets being what they are, and seeing they are both productions of Universal Television, I wouldn't be surprised to see more overlap, though I'll be watching Rockford much longer, and it might become difficult to remember random locations from Whiz Kids later on. But this episode has other locations right near many Whiz Kids locations. Both shows shot a lot around Magnolia Boulevard in Burbank, for example. The residential locations for Rockford are the most difficult. The location for Rocky's house I tried finding on Google Earth based on street signs seen on screen, and it was just about impossible. I found out on the Rockford Files Filming Locations blog that the actual address was 3654 Lancashire Boulevard off of Inland. So the intersection I looked at first was the wrong one. But once I found the right intersection, I figured out the rest of the problem. I suspect close to the entire neighborhood has been remodeled, expanded, or outright demolished and built anew. None of the housing looks anything like what I'm seeing on the television show. The picture of Rocky's house from the blog was from a 1979 episode, and it looks like a modest 1920s home. The current street view shot is almost entirely trees and brush, and the aerial view shows the roof profile is entirely different. So at least the very modest home from 1979 has been expanded, if not replaced. I also noted the relative proximity of the location to the Universal lot. This address is only a couple of blocks on the other side of the 101 from the studio. What worked? I liked the way into the story, with Rocky stumbling into a mob deal but never realizing what he saw. Then they did a good job with Jim following Rocky, intercut with a deepening of the mob plot. One humorous touch I especially enjoyed was Jim turning pages of Rocky's day planner, saying, the usual, with the subsequent reveal that each page actually has literally the usual written down with nothing else. I'm hoping we get lots of interaction between father and son in the second half now that they're back together. What didn't work? Okay, this isn't really something that didn't work exactly. They ended the episode with a bang and left plenty of story to tell in the second half. But wouldn't you want to really cliffhanger that bomb? They kept a touch of suspense. The place is around the corner. Oops, I forgot my keys. But don't you want to end the episode on some kind of hook for next week? Maybe cut to black with the sound of a blast or something? I realize that Jim and Rocky were probably inside the blast radius and they will reveal some kind of injuries at the start of the second episode, but it felt odd not to be fully cliffhangered. Perhaps that's modern sensibilities for you. So next time is the Rockford Files Season 2, Episode 4, Gearjammers Part 2, but next up on this podcast episode will be Whiz Kids Episode 15, The Sufi Project. Happy hunting! I get it, the place has been tossed, but did the crooks absolutely have to go in and turn all the framed photos and art at different angles on the walls?
Good morning, America. Come join us for breakfast.
You're the one. We're fixing breakfast for you. You're the one.
At McDonald's, we're fixing a hot, delicious breakfast just for you. Fresh scrambled eggs, hot cakes and sausage, our own Egg McMuffin, lots of Danish pastries. Try 'em.
At McDonald's.
We do it all for you.
When you drive to Wendy's and order a single, you get more beef than the Whopper or the Big Mac. At Wendy's, you never have to ask, where's the beef?
Welcome back to the One Idjit's Thoughts on podcast. This is Paul Mackey. In the break, you heard first a commercial that could have aired with the Rockford episode, assuming the year is correct as the poster provided on YouTube, and the second could have aired during the following episode. I have no idea what part of the years those were released, but the YouTube posts said the same year as the shows were released, so I'd say close enough. Anyhow, I needed to get some way to put a break between the episodes, so that'll do for now. As with show clips, I don't claim to be owner of McDonald's or Wendy's content. Pretty much I'm just giving free advertising, as McDonald's still sells breakfast, and Wendy's still sells beef. I haven't written much else because I need to keep up going with recording this evening, so I'll just jump right into Whiz Kids episode 15, The Sufi Project, originally aired March 17th, 1984. This is definitely the waning episodes of the series at this point. There were 20 days between episode 13 and 14, and roughly the same between 14 and this episode. When they made this episode and the following two, the cast and crew already knew they were only fulfilling the network order, and so no further episodes would be produced. They had been officially cancelled. The series was already considered on the bubble at mid-season, and not long after that, CBS gave them the axe. So let's look at March 17th, 1984, that day of note. I'm not into rugby and definitely not at age 10, but Scotland beat France to take the Five Nations Championship, taking the Triple Crown for the first time since 1938, and the Grand Slam for the first time since 1925, so I guess that sounds significant. Looking at the box office, there were some titles in the top 5 this week that are obvious, and a couple that surprised me. Against All Odds came in at number 5. Number 4 starred James Garner in Tank. Number 3 was The Ice Pirates. Number 2, Footloose, knocked out of number 1 by Splash. I didn't figure Tank or Ice Pirates were ever top 5 release material, but I guess this is the spring doldrums ahead of the summer movie season. Over in Billboard magazine, the top 5 home video games were number 5, Congo Bongo, only in its 9th week on the chart, in contrast to number 4, Ms. Pac-Man, which was on the chart for over a year at this point. Number 3 was Joust, and number 2, Pole Position. Number 1 was Qbert in its 27th week at number 1. Over in the UK, according to Music Week, the top 5 singles were Hello by Lionel Richie at number 5. Number 4 was Wouldn't It Be Good by Nick Kershaw. Number 3, Street Dance by Break Machine. Number 2, Joanna / Tonight by Kool and the Gang. I'm not sure if that's the 2 songs played together or a double A-side single. The 2 tracks had separate single releases in the US. And number 1 was 99 Red Balloons by Nina. And finally, let's look at the top of the Hot 100 in the US. Number 5 was Footloose by Kenny Loggins. Number 4, 99 Luftballons by Nena. Number 3, Somebody's Watching Me by Rockwell. Number 2, Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper. And number 1 was Jump by Van Halen. It's probably a little late to start this for the show, but I only just discovered a good source for ratings. This episode ranked 64th of 69 on the week, according to the Nielsen's, with an 8.8 rating and a 16 share. These days, that rating and share would be considered a winner, but compared to Magnum P.I. at 23.6 rating and 37 share, it was close to nothing. So the brief summary: Farley investigates a cetacean scientist's disappearance. Mysterious messages have arrived which Richie is able to trace to Ocean World, and Farley and the kids search Ocean World for further leads. They discover an experimental lab working on human-dolphin communication, and a wild dolphin named Sufi talks with Richie. The doctor's assistant encourages them to keep communicating, but she turns out to be a spy trying to harvest the research, and Sufi the dolphin herself, and relocate to a lab in Cuba. She uses Richie to lure Sufi into a trap, and then tries to follow through and take Sufi to Cuba, but Richie manages to get a brief message out to Ralph. The gang alerts Farley, who in turn gets Lieutenant Quinn and the police to catch the bad guys, after which the kids return Sufi to the ocean. The Who Is query? Bob Shayne was a co-creator of Whiz Kids and wrote the pilot episode. The part of the base idea of the series with teens solving mysteries was Shayne's going into the project. He was the producer until they decided to take a different approach. Reportedly, he also had a falling out with co-creator Philip DeGuerre. Biographic information is a little bit thin, but it's clear that he is the reason Richie's mom is Irene Adler with his Sherlock Holmes affinity. Bob Shayne was the original story editor on Heart to Heart and co-wrote the first 10 episodes of that series with Tom Mankiewicz, though he is only credited directly for writing the 10th. Bob started out in comedy and variety shows in the early 70s, working with talent at Johnny Carson's Tonight Show and writing for Burt Reynolds' Late Show and Tony Orlando and Dawn. He wrote a number of one-off sitcom episodes ahead of Heart to Heart in the 1970s, then a few one-off hour-long dramas in the early 80s, including Knight Rider, Magnum P.I., and Tales of the Gold Monkey. He wrote a total of 8 episodes of Simon & Simon through 1988, and of course it was through work at Simon & Simon that he worked with Philip DeGuerre and co-developed Whiz Kids with him. He followed up Whiz Kids, working as producer of the short-lived series Cover Up, which did not fare well after the tragic on-set death of John Eric Hexum. He wrote the TV movie, The Return of Sherlock Holmes, starring Michael Pennington, a pilot which did not go to series. Later, he also wrote 2 other Holmes TV movies, starring Christopher Lee as the famed detective. His last credit is on the TV series Legend in 1995, and he is currently listed as faculty at Chapman University in Southern California. Totally 80s. I'm not sure. Do hour-long network shows still regularly roll cars down cliffs and have them explode at the bottom? They sure did in the 80s. So I'm saying rolling a car down a cliff and having it explode at the bottom is totally 80s. Artifactoids. Did the tunnel with the truck that foiled the pursuit in the opening action set piece look familiar? This tunnel is a popular shooting location, and I promise the majority of listeners will have seen it before. This is the Mount Hollywood Tunnel, part of Griffith Park in Los Angeles, which has come up before on the podcast on the Rockford Files. The tunnel lies between the Greek Theater, as mentioned in that episode, The 4-Pound Brick, and the iconic Griffith Park Observatory seen in many movies and TV shows over the years. Mount Hollywood is best known for featuring the Hollywood sign on one slope, but the opposite side of the mountain is part of Griffith Park. Looking at the roads that twist around in the park, I wouldn't be shocked if most of the driving scenes were shot there for this show. But the tunnel itself is the artifactoid this time around. In many shows and movies, it is depicted as being a long tunnel, and lots of action has been set allegedly inside it. The truth is, the tunnel is maybe 1/8 of a mile long. I recognized it from Back to the Future Part 2, but it is also the portal to Toontown in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. They mocked up an entrance to Cheyenne Mountain here for War Games. Moviemaps.org lists 4 more shows or movies that shot there, but I'm guessing that count is still on the low end of reality. What worked? The dolphin communication angle was a fun element. I'm sure they thought at the time the breakthrough to the kind of communication they were depicting would be right around the corner, even though it still has not come yet today. I remember watching this on TV when it aired. The Athena Society and Carson Marsh were used just the right amount. The non-named SeaWorld working with a non-captive dolphin was a nice touch, and I'm curious if it might have been a very early commentary on captive dolphins for entertainment. What didn't work? The climax mostly consisted of cop cars driving with sirens before the eventual showdown on the beach. It all seemed to be perhaps written as, then the cops come and they catch the bad guys, somehow. I know it's probably not that bad, but it felt that way when I was watching it. So next time is Whiz Kids Episode 16, Father's Day. Happy hunting! You've been listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast, produced by Paul Mackey in association with Nimlas Studios. Any short clips of audio from shows is included under fair use for commentary purposes, and copyright for that content remains with its original copyright holders. The theme song is Too Good by Jack Mangan and is used by his generous permission. One Idjit's Thoughts is produced under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. You can find more episodes of this podcast and many other fine podcasts at nimlas.org. You can contact me by emailing idjitcastpodcast@gmail.com or commenting on episodes at nimlas.org. Not sure if the credits are just cut off or if that page with all of the technical vendors has been removed now that the show is canceled, and the technical vendors probably didn't want to really give any money anymore.